It's December, ready or not.
Oh my goodness, I know. It snuck up, but also it's been busy getting here, which is weird. But so I don't know.
That was awesome. You came to Idaho. We sure appreciated it. It was a
was
great
so
boost to our
fun.
program.
I froze my tail off or my fingers.
And ankles.
Yeah.
When were you in Idaho, Kelly?
What, 2 weeks ago, John?
Yeah.
Was it already that long? Oh my gosh.
Very cool.
Yeah. We trained about 60 CSOs across the whole state, but I was in Fort something. What was it?
Fort Hall.
Fort Hall. Yeah.
This is what you just missed.
Oh,
Oh,
darn. Hey, at least I wasn't at home in Buffalo.
That's true. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Buffalo and Watertown got nailed. It
Oh my
was
goodness.
bad. Yeah. We had people abandoning cars and roads, and former student of mine drives a snowplow, and he said that the state police told him, you need to get these cars off the road. So he'd bank up snow and push the cars off the road. Had no choice.
Yeah.
That was just outside of Fort Drum.
That's crazy. Well, I know a couple more people will probably still join, but let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to our Rural Monthly Connect Call. My name is Kelly Green, and I am from the Arizona SciTech ecosystem. So today in the chat box, I'd love for you to drop in your name, your ecosystem, and any experience you have with broadening engagement, maybe like a tip or something that's good to share for the group. And then, of course, we'll go around the room and share highlights of upcoming ecosystem opportunities or featured resources that you'd like to share. That's the best part about this meeting, is just letting everybody talk. But I wanted to share a couple of slides. Last year, we talked about broadening engagement, and we had a whole discussion in one of these meetings. And so I wanted to bring that around, that it's been an entire year. So A, thank you for being my friends that long. And B, just remembering that broadening engagement just really means doing something somewhere, and it doesn't have to be huge. And this is kind of the time of the year, because of the holiday season, that people start to really say thank you or send a card, maybe drop a gift. It's a really good time to show a little bit of appreciation for people that met you to do that something somewhere as well. So kind of thinking about that to not only broaden the engagement by getting them to come back by acknowledging them. So I challenge you this month to be as social as possible and do something to kind of take action. So these are what I suggested last year, like visiting new community locations, especially again, because of the holidays, more people are apt to open their doors and, you know, welcome you in. So talk to people and maybe post a flyer in a new location. Go to 3 different Starbucks, put up a little note about your ecosystem or an event that you have coming. Maybe run a contest or a giveaway. I see people keep jumping in. Maybe share online stories. Like just the other day for Giving Tuesday, I shared a little bit about a CSO I've known since I started the program and how her hairstyle has changed quite a bit. So thinking about ways that you can be social and just talk about what's happening with you, and maybe even relating it to your ecosystem work or a project that you're doing or an event that you're having. So in the chat, let's see what everybody is talking about. Okay, good. We have one example. So think about something or pick one that you would like to try this month that you'll, I'm not going to check and say, oh, did you share 2 stories online? But what would be something that you can commit to doing this month? And then really remembering that a conversation can really be something that changes not only your impact in the community, but you might find something or someone that could really be an asset. Because they've never been asked, or nobody's ever talked to them, or nobody's ever invited them. So kind of look in different places. When you're thinking about broadening engagement, this week, we're actually going to the Zona Music Festival and hosting a table to really kind of think about, we don't really go to the music festival, but that's a whole nother group of people that might be interested in science and technology. So, and then I like this quote, every person is a new door to a different world. So again, just kind of thinking about who you are and how you can reach new individuals to promote what you're working on. And then that kind of came to me and putting the slides together. Normally we're just kind of chit chatting, but it really made me think about how awesome when John shared to me, hey, Kelly, have you seen this? Have we talked about the Daily Yonder? And their title, it says, keep it rural, or the tagline. And this was one of their featured articles talking about pretty much what I just shared, that we're going to the music festival and people gather around food, music, festival type atmospheres. So you never know who you're going to meet. And we thought maybe there's a way we could do some articles about what this group is doing. Maybe it's promoting that we've been meeting now for a year and a half. Maybe it's something special that's happening. I suggested to John maybe about, all across Idaho launching the CSO program, but telling people about how cool we are is maybe even putting in something in the TIES newsletter, the ecosystem newsletter about, hey, did you know we're rural and we're meeting and just hanging out and getting to know each other. So that's kind of my quick highlight for today. I want to make sure that we take some time to go around the room. You can share tips or tricks or ideas that you have. And then of course, like John said, it's December. So I want to make sure we all say, if it snowed in your area, enjoy it. But definitely happy holidays too. So let me stop sharing. And John, are you okay with getting us started?
Sure. I posted the Daily Yonder for everybody if you want to check it out. It's a weekly newsletter that comes out. I've been following it for several months now, and it has some really great articles, data, all sorts of stuff. So might be worth looking at, and perhaps an organization we can either partner with or help to spread the word on what we're doing. So anyway, no other particular updates.
Awesome. Thank you. What about you, Dale? Oops, you're muted. Yeah.
Sorry, I had hidden it because I was looking to see if I could tell you a little bit more about these broadening participation tests resources. But so as a reminder, Tennessee, or at least our area, Tennessee, is not one of the ecosystems. So and we have to figure out at some point, Kelly, I want to talk to you about what that means. I mean, are there ways to connect better or whatever? But we have a large IMLS grant to work across communities in rural Tennessee. We're doing that by partnering with 5 other museums. We're part of a science alliance already that's worked together for funding, and now we're trying to do it with education. So we're using schools to reach through to communities as a starting point, but we ultimately want to partner with schools, homes, and community. And so right now we're just frantically trying to get out something this week, which is builds off of a NSF project I did years ago, exploration cards, which are just simple cards for kids to do at home that connect a little bit with what's happening in their school. And just as a point of interest, this was just sort of a little something we added on to a project many years ago, and it had no idea how impactful it would be. But just by sending something home with children that they were supposed to do with a parent, broadly defined, whoever that was, someone in their home, and then bring it back. And it also helped connect to the content. Then that provided 2 things. It provided something for parents to talk about with one another. And it also provided an opportunity for teachers and parents to talk together about something other than the performance of their child or the behavior or misbehavior or whatever it was, right? So, so this turned out to be really huge. So we are we are sort of reintegrating that into something that we want to be statewide and broad, so that limits to some degree our customization, but in this way, we can really customize, I think, to a classroom and start this. So stay tuned. We're trying to get our first one out because there's only a couple more weeks of school, as we all know. And we want to get something out to them early next week so that we can send something home so that they can respond to it in January. And then we will start to broaden our themes and comments and questions and see where we get to.
I love that. I would love to see the cards. If you're able to share out a link or send any resources you will in the chat or send me an email, I'd love to see what you're doing.
Yeah, so I pulled from this NSF from which was called Parent Partners in School Science when I was at the Franklin Institute years ago. I could share one of that, or let me wait and we're just in the process of redesigning some of them and doing new ones for this new project. Then I'll happily, show you what we're doing.
Awesome. All right.
Oh,
Linda,
sorry, the other thing, just to point out, you asked about broadening participation.
Yeah.
CASE, the Center for Advancement in Informal STEM Education, when there was a task force on broadening participation, and there's a whole toolkit there. So if you're looking at ways to do that, there's everything. I was part of the group and I worked on one that was about parent engagement. Other people worked on other things, but it's just a 2-pager on all these topics and questions to ask and ways to have discussion. And I put the link in the chat. So you might want to just go there and see if something resonates with you.
Absolutely. Excellent. All right. What about Lisa? Thank you for
Hello,
sharing.
it's been a while since I've been able to make these calls, so it's nice to be on the call. I had just shared in the chat just something that we've done here to broaden engagement, and that was we've worked on converting all of our school science fairs to make them engaging events, and we've had terrific turnout, and we're really excited to get those going again this year after a couple of years off from that process. What we do is we invite in all of our community partners. We also, in our elementary science fairs, invite the high school clubs and classes, the STEM area classes that students and parents can get a glimpse at and then look forward to, so to hold a rabbit, from an ag class and learn about what the ag students do, to drive the robot that the FTC students built at the high school. When you're a first grader or second grader, it sets the stage for future success, I believe, in a very nice way. We invite the parents and we have activities for everyone. So it really is, a great way to connect with our community, to build community and to create awareness around STEM. So that's my big share out. I'm looking forward to getting those up and running full force again this year.
It's so weird. We've been talking about it pretty much in this group all year of like, we're back in person, but it's different. And like really figuring out we can't do it the same way that we did it before. So we're having to all be inventive and creative.
Well, it feels like we're doing a lot of the same things, but it's a reinventing the wheel as we do it kind of approach. So everything seems inefficient and a lot of work in many ways. And it's so weird because we end up in many cases doing things very similar to the way they were done before, but our mental process needs to work through it all again. I don't know. It's such a strange time. But
yeah,
anyway, we're excited in spite of all the challenges.
Yay. Well, it's very nice to see you again. Linda, how about you?
Hi, Linda Stone. I'm the director of the Southeast Kentucky STEM Learning Ecosystem. And as you can see on there, our name is officially changed. We have split from the college. We have graduated from Berea College, and we are now our own nonprofit called Partners for Rural Impact. And one of the things that you mentioned earlier, and I was like, oh, I have to connect you. We have an organization called the Rural Library Network that's national. And so we need to connect these two teams and see if there's not a way that we can do some work together. I have presented to them before. I brought Lego to them before, different things like that. But I think it might be an opportunity just to have conversations because as I've talked to some of the rural libraries in Eastern Kentucky, some are really, really interested in STEM. Some are terrified. They're terrified. And I'm like, you all do this every day. You just don't realize you're doing it. So having those conversations and helping them understand STEM is not just computers. It's not just robots. There's so much more involved in that. Literacy and STEM are so entwined and can be an amazing tool if it's done together and done well. That's kind of the work that we're working on right now in Eastern Kentucky. We're part of Remake Learning Days. So if you all are not part of that, you should reach out and look at that. That's a really cool program. That is, Remake Learning Days has 7 different areas that they focus on, and they incorporate youth voice and professional development and maker and arts. And so all of that, including technology and science, right? And outdoor learning. So one of the things that we're doing right now is getting those organizations in the community. We're getting them connected to our schools or our presenters to see what we can do together, because the focus of it is intergenerational learning. So having students learning with their parent or caregiver, or even teaching seniors, grandparents, whatever. So that's kind of the idea, is to show that learning is a lifelong process. And so we're working on those kinds of things. And of course, my heart is always around STEM. So I'm pushing that every chance I get. I love the arts, don't get me wrong. STEM doesn't exist without it, but I'm always going to be pushing STEM. So that's where we are right now.
Yeah, that'd be great. We have a library working group that I bet they would love to share ways they've made it a little bit more sneaky and accessible, like putting things in a backpack. Like they could go out on a nature exploration, but it gives them really specific activities. And you can check out the backpack from the library, which to me, like, what a cool concept. So excellent. Thank you, Linda. How about you, Sue? How are you doing? Looking for the mute.
My mute button. I have so many things pulled up. Okay. I'm kind of out of the loop right now because I retired, but we were supposed to be having an ecosystem meeting in early December, but I think, like you said, people trying to get back into the groove. It sounds like yesterday I got an email that they may have to delay it. I'm not sure. So I've been doing stuff though, just trying to engage nationally with smaller groups that are trying to engage for rural, and just finding out things that are going on. And yesterday I got an email from somebody about there's a rural cinema competition, so making movies, and I put that link in the chat, making movies that highlight leaders, particularly for social justice and environmental justice. And I guess that's the only thing I have to contribute, is when I get into these rural communities where I find STEM is associated with justice issues. That's where the STEM is coming into play. Like for us here, we've had a lot of water quality issues with, it's been in the national news, all the PFAS that the DuPont Chemours plant has put in the water, and all the testing they're having to do of people who still are on well water. They're not on any kind of city or county water. But I am noticing a trend that a way to advocate for STEM is by connecting it to social justice and environmental justice. That's what I got.
I think that's a great point. And, you know, we've been all kind of connected to STEM, or we've at least been aware of what's going on. I would say probably a solid 10 years, but I feel like some people are just arriving, like Linda's talking about, and they're like, oh, I had no idea. But now with, you know, social justice and different things, even rural is a little bit more of, people are a little bit more aware with the digital divide. And I think that's a great point, because I think it's smart with that rural cinema opportunity. I'm sharing it right. I was trying to write an email. Like, oh, I totally was sharing that. I think that that's really kind of a great point. Like, people are, you know, becoming a little bit more aware and engaged and trying to figure out how to talk about it. So yeah, thank you for sharing.
I would just add one other thing I keep coming up against, and I think you alluded to it, is the value of STEM among the educators I speak to in rural communities is computer. computer, getting on computers, learning how to use data. That STEM equals computer access and being able to use computers in the future. Because that old argument, oh, but these kids are using STEM every day. If they're living on farms, if they're doing this, that they don't want to hear that anymore because they heard it for a while and it didn't produce anything. So now they're jumping to the head of the line and saying, we understand now. This digital divide is a real problem. So that's my other 2 cents.
It was more like 25 cents. We'll take it. Looks like Cal, you're up next on my screen. How are you doing?
Doing well this morning. It's nice to see everybody. I'm going to pick up the library theme because about a month ago, I presented at the Arizona Library Association conference, and I did a pre-conference training on libraries as the cornerstones for ecosystems. And it was an entire day. It's like a 6-hour training. And it was almost all rural libraries. And so we did kind of a strategic planning piece on how to vision themselves as a piece of the ecosystem of their environment, or how to help build one out. So it was really interesting to see the enthusiasm of each of the people that were there. Obviously, they chose to be there, so figured that they were at least had some sort of predisposition to it. But the follow-up afterwards has been really positive, and it's like I said, rural all over the state. A couple of folks have already started to plan STEM activity days that haven't been done in their communities before. So I think empowering libraries, not just like not having them do it on their own. Sometimes having that coaching piece is really just helps them get over that hump, and then they can just run. But yeah, that's going on. And I've got this great new project with Franklin Institute out of Philly on bringing astronomy and astronomy activities to under-resourced and under-resourced communities. And that has been going really well too. We've been bringing us amateur astronomers. So this whole piece, like this whole amateur astronomer piece and engagement is being piloted by Franklin in 5 different states. And the material that they produced is available. Like, everybody wants it. I'll show you where the website is. Just go and snag it and use it. They've curated, you know how NASA has like a zillion activities. It's really hard to like figure out is this going to work. So they've curated 14 activities for the moon, and then there's going to be some activities for Mars, and there's all that stuff. So I'll share that. The other thing is, I was at a conference a few weeks ago with another NASA project that I'm on, and the NASA Eclipse Ambassadors. Has everybody heard about them? Or if you haven't, okay. So it's part of the Night Sky Network. And you can go to their website or just do NASA Eclipse Ambassadors. What they're trying to do is find like 500 amateur astronomers around the country. And it doesn't have to be in the shadow of the eclipse for next year or in 2024, but kind of train folks up and give them some science communication skills. So if you're interested in that, Vivian White is the go-to person at the Night Sky Network. She's amazing also. And she integrates with amateur astronomy clubs around the country. So yeah, so if you know anybody that might be interested, or if your organization might want to host them, the Eclipse Ambassadors, just go ahead and sign up for it. Yeah, I think that's it.
Awesome, thank you. That's a lot of really good ideas for broadening engagement. Kirsty, nice to see you. What about you?
Well, thank you. This is actually, I think, the first time I've been able to attend. So I'm so happy to be here, and I'm really realizing like how much I've been missing for not joining earlier. So I am with the Landell Foundation in New Mexico, and we are we have the Northern New Mexico STEAM Coalition, and then we're also working to partner with Tara Henderson and Explora around the New Mexico STEM ecosystem. I guess the thing that I'm excited about right now is this weekend we've got the New Mexico Governor's STEM Challenge, which we've got 20 industry partners, 30 schools coming together to just highlight kids' brilliance around STEM. And it's just been a really neat partnership between industry really showing up and starting to see what talents our youth have, and really recognizing like the nurturing and support that they need to grow into the STEM professionals of tomorrow. And then it's also been, so we've got New Mexico Workforce Solutions in there, which is our Department of Labor, the Public Education Department is also supporting it. So it's a competition that is in its 4th year, but it's really brought people together around STEM. And it's been just super exciting to be a part of that.
That's awesome. And yay for our group, because broadening engagement, she actually came. Woo-hoo! Bruce, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I haven't heard recently from your nephew in Wake County Schools, but I'll catch up with him and their group later on.
Oh, they moved to New Hampshire.
Oh, well, anyway, I will share, like everyone has already said, that being at these meetings is really so important, I think, for all of us. We make some great connections. And so I joined for that. And then I also joined so I can see Sue each time, because this is the only time we get to see each other. And I'm just right up the coast from her in North Carolina. So I promise Sue, I'll make it in, and then we'll come and we'll visit and have that coffee. I do want to share, so our ecosystem is very broad and there's very few of us. So all the things you've talked about, we've realized that we are kind of like spitting in the ocean if we ourselves try to make that big community splash about STEM education. So our primary objective is to work with schools to help them understand why they need to do that in their community. So we work with 31 rural school districts, and I put in the chat that we had recently had a planning retreat for a few of those schools to kind of get the ball rolling around what North Carolina calls STEM schools of distinction. I don't think I've ever shared that here before. But what it does, and it's one of the few things our Department of Public Instruction's ever done that's useful, but they published this rubric that says, if you want to be recognized as a STEM school of distinction, here's kind of what it looks like. And for our rural schools who are always going, well, we don't really know what STEM is. We have some robots, we have some competitions, and they start listing that off, but it's never in an organized way. And so this rubric, which the Department of Public Instruction published and worked really hard to create, it turns out that they aren't able to provide technical support on that, meaning that just a public of instruction. So here it is, make it what you will. So we picked that up as one of our main objectives, was to begin to have planning workshops to share that rubric with them and then give them time to plan. So we did actually a 4-day workshop with them, and we had 7 schools that came, which is very small in terms of the number of schools we have, but it got schools interested because they could set their direction. And one of the biggest pieces of that, interestingly, is community engagement, because that's just a major factor in that. So because of that, we spent an evening playing the change game. I don't know if any of you have ever done that before, but it walks your school district, your sample school district, through this idea of how do you make change happen. And what you find out very quickly, because of the way it's a board game, because of the way game works, is you go get a card and come back and it says, hey, you can't do that because you haven't talked to the superintendent. You haven't gone to see the county commissioners. You haven't talked to the superintendent again. You haven't talked to the school board. You haven't looked at the social chart to see who knows who. You really haven't done all those things that really make it successful. in terms of creating change in your school. Well, the first thing they did for all of them was say, well, we've got to just do things publicly and make sure people know that we're doing these things. And so every single one of them left with a plan, a larger plan, but one piece of that was we're going to have a community STEM night at our school and invite all the parents so they'll know what we're doing. And everyone that I've heard back from that's done that, they thought maybe a handful of parents might show up. They had hundreds of parents, and these are school districts with, I mean, a school might have, well, y'all know this, you're in rural areas, a school might have 200 kids. And it turns out that half of them showed up and brought their parents, and they were huge successes. And so parents began to understand what it was that the school was beginning to do. So I highly recommend working with schools around an endpoint that kind of has lanes that they came from Department of Public Instruction, but these lanes were like, here's how you can get there. And it turns out that once they see that, it organizes their thinking, they get very excited, engaged. And so suddenly we have schools all over Eastern North Carolina, they're saying, we're going to be a STEM school with distinction. So it was great to have that tool for them. And then they really enjoyed the planning time. Here, I'm going to share really quickly the link to that. And yes, it's very similar to what standards might be for any district or any state that says, you know, this is a designated STEM school. We just realized that our schools didn't know that North Carolina had one. So it's been really helpful for us to begin that conversation about outreach and making those connections within their communities, because they could do it a whole lot better than I can.
I think that's so valid and such an exciting point that they maybe had no idea that they could be labeled, right, a STEM school, and then becoming its own network, like, oh, we're also a STEM school, and then you make friends there. I think that's
Absolutely.
they just need a little guidance. Even adults need pathways. Here, come with me. Let me show you. So thanks for
Yeah.
sharing. Those are great resources
Sure.
too. Let's see, Barb, how are you doing? Hope you're still muted.
Good morning. Good to see everybody. Even though our STEM ecosystem is in Northwest Michigan, we're in a weird thing. We have a state ecosystem in Michigan, and then we have communities like ours that aren't big enough to be their own, but then you're kind of not that visible to the state either. So it's an interesting juxtaposition. So we're not official, but we are in a way. So it's kind of weird. So I'm put in the chat that we have a Super Science Saturday coming up next week. It's something that ever since I started 4 years ago, it's kind of hard to believe. We help promote this event for the local robotics team. So first robotics, you're supposed to do a give back. And so these kids decided that the way they're going to give back is they're going to host an elementary age Super Science Saturday. And this is the first one now in 3 years because it got canceled in 2020 and 2021. And we hope it doesn't get canceled this time because the timing post Thanksgiving and, but at any rate, so we help promote it in our newsletter and flyers and in all kinds of ways, because all kids across the region are invited, which means generally the people within maybe a half-hour drive come. And then we attend, and we have a table that's all about what we do. And so we get, some visibility about why this is important, who we are, because we have a lot of resources for families to do at home and a newsletter where they can see what things are coming. And so we're hoping them, how do you stay connected after an event like this that's being held in the community? I'm really, the first year we helped promote, we helped them double the attendance to 1,200 and around 800 actually. And so I'm really curious what it's going to be this time around. And then the conversation about libraries, we just had our 1-year anniversary of having STEM kits in regional public libraries, which I've mentioned before, where we partner with the largest local, you know, in the city, Traverse City Library. We partner with them. So it's really, you know, they're flourishing in some places, and people have just taken off with it. Even like have their newsletter has like little characters, and every month they're doing something in STEM, to ones who are like, they're not going off the shelf. So we're trying to have them help each other through a network call that's actually happening this afternoon that we hold once a quarter now, where they can share ideas about how they're promoting, how they're using them in different ways, how they're connecting in the community. And who is in the libraries makes such a difference. Like even in my little town, we had a change, the librarian retired, and now we have a new one who is like, boom, pro STEM. I know all about this. We were doing it where I came from, you know, like it is night and day. You know, I was like pushing a rope uphill at my own library. And now it's like, you know, I went and met with her, and it was like, I couldn't stop writing about all the ideas we were coming up with. So that's really exciting. And I spoke to her about helping us, because we're very small. There's just 4 of us, and one of them is a AmeriCorps intern. And so basically, you know, since you're now all this energy about getting into the school and getting in partnership in town and business and the government and everybody knowing about what you're doing as a library, it would be great if we could somehow go together in some of these ways, especially like with the school. And she's very keen about that, like help them get connected with the newsletter so they can connect beyond the STEM kits in the schools. When we did the STEM kits in the schools, we wrote grants to purchase them, and we created a toolkit to guide how to put them together and use them. And that made all the difference on adoption, because like somebody mentioned earlier, a lot of them are like, I don't know how to do this. I'm not a STEM person. So we gave them like, and then some of them, we even went over there and helped them do it. So, you know, you kind of have to see where they're at. It's very different by personality. One of the new things, we've had this really interesting conversation, and again, helping us connect to other groups of people. There's an organization here called EcoSeeds that they work on environmental programs. Sometimes they're part of after school programs, and they also have like a green core where they're teaching skills to teens that help them get careers that are basically like things like rebuilding trails in parks in a rural area. And so we have this career investigator that I mentioned before. So we're talking about how to, for every career, to say, how could this be green? Because a lot of kids are really keen on being environmental these days, of course, it's their future. And so trying to show how some careers may be directly environmental and specialized, but other ones, you know, you have these skills and you can apply it in that way, or choose who you work for. So we're trying to get that message through. So we're brainstorming on that. And lastly, I was going to bring up pop-ups. We have this STEAMmaker Alliance. And again, it's a network that we co-facilitate with that same library. And how can we get out of the one city we have and neighboring people? How do we reach people further out? And so we're having pop-up events at different locations, and any of the STEAM makers who can make it that day come. So usually like 4 or 5 come. And we just did one at a conservation district site where they have trails and they have camps in the summer. And about half a dozen of the STEAM makers came, and it was a Friday night and it wasn't perfect weather, and we still had over 100 people come. So and learn, and so they had all kinds of STEM activities that they could do, plus familiarize themselves with this great place, this conservation district that they might not known about. And now even in my own village, where a company came to us and said, how can we get visibility? We're new here, we're open in the winter, everybody thinks we're closed. How can we increase it? We're thinking getting youth in with STEM would help, because the person that manages there is a mom of young kids. And so we're talking about having a pop-up at the marina, this new marina owner, and inviting it to be a big family night, including STEM, and even things like they have an ice rink that they're going to be putting up, and even like things like the physics of ice, like relate it. I'm trying to get them to consider doing it also to mechanics, like the boats and everything that they work on, but that might have to wait a little bit. So anyway, just kind of like new ways to reach people that we have not traditionally looked at. You know, with some of these formats like a pop-up or, you know, STEM kits or whatever. So thanks.
I love it. I agree. Like people that didn't know they were STEM, I've always advocated for that because I was one. Didn't know I did STEM stuff. So I love that, Barb. Nicely done. And like Cal said, conservation districts are great partners or outreach. There are a lot of people are already doing things that we didn't know each other.
Yeah.
And so every time we meet a new person, it's like, oh, that's perfect. I can help facilitate. You do all your cool stuff and we can work together. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing. And we are coming up on 8:45. I do have a couple more people who haven't had a chance to share. If you still want to share, don't. You can stay. We're still recording and we always share this out after. But I really wanted to advocate for this as a Rural Connect call. I know we talk about ecosystems, but it is not a requirement to be here. So please keep coming. You can bring friends if you want to invite somebody else who you think might want to be connected to a larger group of other rural to get them inspired. This is not exclusive and we love having you. There's no requirement to be an ecosystem, but of course, that's how we all knew each other and got started. So again, if you have to hop off, I totally understand. But so I think Joe's or Sep hasn't shared, and then there might be one other. But Sep, did you want to share any quick highlights? How you doing?
Hey there, good morning. I am on limited internet here on the San Pedro River as usual. Hopefully, if I have to, I'll cut this video out. I put a couple of links and information in the chat already, just some updates on the Bisbee Science Lab. They received the Arizona Environmental Education Award for let me see what it was exactly, winner for Outstanding Inclusive Environmental Ed Program, which is great. And they also received a real substantial grant funding from the Arizona Community Foundation. And just a reminder of, you know, like I wasn't involved in this back in those days, but this other fellow here on the call, Cal, and the RAIN grant and Etta Kralovic and Melanie Green, they were the progenitors of that lab. And it now has a mobile science lab. It's got a massive grant for a big backyard environmental ed project. They're winning awards. They make contact with very small communities throughout Cochise County. We're talking, you know, communities of 50 people and less. And they get out there with the mobile science lab. And this all goes back, you know, 4, 5, 6 years or more with that RAIN grant and the work that Cal was doing and Melanie and Etta. And it's just awesome to be connected to this and see it flourishing. And I'm on the board now of the Bisbee Science Lab, so I'd love to be promoting all the work that they're doing. So those are just a couple of updates. I also just mentioned I feel very lucky about some of the connections we have with libraries in Cochise County. I put a link in there to a very small library in Huachuca City with a librarian by the name of Stephanie Fulton. Amazing woman, amazing librarian, promoting STEM, after school STEM, you know, learning courses, also received funding from the RAIN grant when we had it, and just an advocate for the community. And also our librarian at the Cochise County level for our kind of county-wide library system, Amity Ricketts. I'm just saying this because if the right people are there, they are amazing. And sometimes it's just, you know, building that relationship to see that develop. So yeah, a lot of exciting things going on, continuing to partner with folks like SciTech and now SARSEF in Tucson, also with Chicanos por la Causa, statewide organization, but we're doing some work with them down here in Southeast Arizona. And it feels like this rural situation can be sometimes like planting, you know, seeds and putting soil in and not knowing like if you did it at the right time of the year, or is something going to come out of the ground. And I just recently, I'm just getting the feeling like things are definitely coming together, and I'm seeing, multiple organizations at a statewide level, but also very locally, Cochise College, many of our school districts, coming together, and it's starting to formulate into a community that they know that each other exists and that they're connected through STEM. And so it's exciting to see. I don't want to get overly excited till more things kind of gel, but it does feel like almost like farming and not knowing if you're using the right seed, if you put it at the right time, if the soil's in the right condition. But I do think with working with Cal and folks here in Cochise County, I think we're seeing seedlings definitely, arise out of the soil here in STEM. So those are just a couple of updates, and I do have to run to a meeting in Sierra Vista now.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. Yeah, it is really exciting to see that work all around Arizona. The Verde Valley also is all of those seeds from the RAIN project with the Rural Innovation Councils, or the RICs. There's so much coming out of that 5-year planting season that are now, different. I love the analogy of the flower too, right? Because some need a lot of water and some don't. And so thinking about that as you're engaging with people this month and trying to broaden engagement, know that some are dormant and they pop up, they're beautiful, and then they go away for a whole nother year. Like thinking about the idea of recognizing them when they do show up, because then they'll come back no matter how big or how small. This conversation is very similar, right? Lisa, you mentioned, I haven't been in here in a while, but to me, it's like old hat. I'm so glad you're here. No problem. You're still connected. And I think that's just like all of our connections in the rural, community and network. It really does matter to let you know that I see you. I know you're working hard. Other people probably see you. And it's good to compliment your efforts as well, not just all of the people you're collaborating with. So thank you for all that you do. And oh my goodness, I'll see you in 2023, which sounds really daunting to say. Like, I remember 2020 when the world was going to end. Now it's 2023. So kudos to all of you. I hope you have a wonderful day and the rest of your month, a safe and happy holiday season. And if you ever need anything, I'm just a quick email. Who knows? We might know somebody who knows somebody who knows somebody who might know something about what you'd like to do. So go out there and make it happen. We'll talk soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye.